In every nation, children are taught basic academic knowledge, learning skills, and cultural norms. However, each nation does not offer the same variation as others. Major factors that contribute to each student's education are the resources and money used to support the different nations. This leads to inadequacies in children's education. When looking into international differences in education, we also need to look at the value placed on education, time spent in school, and the money distributed within that country. According to the National Center of Education Statistics, students in South Korea spend 220 days a year in school compared to the 180 days spent in the U.S., except for two of the states, which is Kansas and Ohio, have a minimum of above 180. These numbers show us that longer days equal higher results because of the international school tests, where South Korea is one of the highest achievers. Mexican children leave school with the worst among the OECD partner countries in leadership, math, and science skills, with around half failing to meet the most basic standards. The poorest children in Vietnam outperform the more privileged of Mexico. Poverty and wealth inadequacies are a huge challenge in Mexico. 18% of the country lives in poverty. In Mexico, 12 years of school are free and mandatory. That's grade 1 through 12, skipping kindergarten. A Mexican school year goes from August to June. School days in Mexico are shorter than those in many countries. Kids goes from either school in the morning from 7:30 a.m. to 12:30 a.m. or that would be 12:30 p.m. or afternoon from 1:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. That's only 5 hours a day for children to learn at school. There are low expectations for parents who think that more than 6 years of school is a luxury. Local schools lack the needs for supplies, teachers, and spaces. Their families can't afford extra school costs like uniforms and transportation. These causes children to fall behind in their education that they see no possible way to catch up. So they miss a day. They could miss a lot of that knowledge just within that day because they couldn't get to school that day. Some must go to work to provide for the family, and most girls have to help with domestic chores and are forced to stay home. In the United States, 13 years of education, which is kindergarten through 12th, preschool and Head Start, is offered, but not mandated. Free public education through high school, mid-August through mid-May, is for United States, and the school times is usually from 8 to 3. New Jersey is the highest state ranking in the United States in education. 9.2% poverty rate is, according to the children's.org, is for the United States. According to the United States of Education, the federal government contributes about 8% of funding to the U.S. public schools. The local government allocates education funding from the revenue generated by property tax and other funding efforts. But because nearly half of those funds come from the local property taxes, the system generated large funding differences between wealthy and impoverished communities. Say if you live in a wealthier community, you're going to go to a better school. Versus if you live in a poor community, you're going to go to a lower ranking school, a lower educated ranking school. Philippines kids have 13 years of school, that's K through 12. Although the Philippines constitutes mandatory requirements for free public education, families are expected to cover the school expenses like supplies, uniforms, tuition fees, and other project fees, which puts a strain on the already tight finances. They go to school from June to March. 50 per classrooms, students per classrooms, but they go in 2 shifts. You can either go from 6 to 12 or 12 to 6. And India kids must complete 10 years of school, grade 1 through 12. That's skipping kindergarten. Once you have completed 10th grade, they must take an exam to gain access to post-secondary schools, which is grade 11 through 12th. If they don't pass that test, they're not going to gain access to the post-secondary school. School is free from age 6 to 12. Classrooms, however, are crowded and poor conditions. The supplies lack, so children barely have a fighting chance to learn. The conclusion is that we can learn from the statistics in that a country's wealth has much to do with the amount of money spent on education. Most countries are too poor. Children that are in the United States are basically born into academic privilege from the districts their parents reside in. The time spent in school also correlates with higher scores.